heard me tell this story before, but that song means a lot to me, partly because when I was a child and my father was a Methodist minister, my dad had this fascination with changing the words to songs. It was like being over familiar, and he would have this thing that he would do from time to time where on say a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, we would be sleeping. And if you remember those blinds, they were like vinyl pull-down blinds that were spring-loaded at the top. If you remember those. My dad would do this funny thing. He would come into a dark room, and he would put our names as his kids in the song. So, for instance, I'd be sleeping. Dad would come in, he'd stand by the window, and he would say, "Low in the bed he lay, Bo Cephas Sanders, waiting the coming day, Bo Cephas Sanders." And then he would snap the blind, and it would wheel up, and light would flood the room, and he would say, "Up from the bed he arose with a mighty triumph for his foes. He arose a victor from the dark domain, and he lives forever with the saints to reign. He arose, hallelujah, Bo arose." So that is explains some of why I am the way I am, and I'm working through that. But preparing for this Easter has been interesting because there is so much unknown, so much uncertain. And it's been very strange, I will admit, to be in this room here week after week without you. To be in this space, because a sanctuary is for a congregation. And this campus is for the community. Being alone for so long and isolated and distanced has been very abstract at some level, where things sort of become just ideas. They're sort of just concepts. I had a funny experience yesterday morning. We were getting ready for the work party. And by the way, thank you for all of you who came yesterday and made this place so beautiful. It's looking great. And we got great weather for today. I was a little nervous with the forecast, but it turned out great. And I'm just not used to seeing people on campus. I've become not very good at sharing with others. If you were to write me a report card, I'm not good at sharing with others right now. I'm just out of practice. And I saw somebody putting something in that dumpster over there. And it's something that we've had to become a bit territorial about, because without the preschool being here, sometimes that'll get left open and people will use it as an opportunity to get rid of something from their house that they didn't want. So I've had to become a little protective of the dumpster. It's quite expensive, actually. We didn't know that ahead of time because it used to be a preschool. It just came out of their budget, but now we're very aware of how much that is to empty each week. So I see somebody putting something in there, and I head over there to confront them, or, to inquire and see what's going on. And I'm walking up, and I'm thinking about how I want to address it. And I see him putting the thing in the dumpster. And so I come up, the thing that I'm going to lead with is, "Hi, can I help you with anything?" Because I figure that's the best way to start. And I get about 50 feet away and realize it's John Espy. And I'm just so unpracticed at seeing another person and identifying them by sight. It was a really actually sort of a disorienting experience, and I was apologetic, and he didn't even know why. He didn't have any frame of reference for why I was so out of joint. As I've been thinking about Easter and trying to come up with what exactly is it that we celebrate, I've had 4 things come to my mind. I just want to propose them to you and then meditate on them for a minute. What exactly is it that makes Easter such a big deal? Why do we get so excited, and why is it such a celebration, actually culturally and globally? And the 4 things that have sort of come to my mind is life, hope, justice, and community. I just want to say a couple things about each of those. When we celebrate life on Easter, when we say Christ is risen, We're saying that life is good, that death doesn't have the final word, that there is something grand and glorious about being alive. And Easter is actually a validation that life is good. Do you want to join me in saying this? Life is good. This year has really pointed out in so many ways things that we miss and maybe we took for granted. And we're looking forward with vaccinations and as things continue to change to returning to whatever life as normal is. We know it'll never be exactly the same, but we're haunted by this deep conviction that life is good. We've lost some people this year. But we have life, and that's good. And it's time for us to think about how do we want to spend that life when life does return to whatever normal looks like. What do we want life to look like? But I think we start with just saying, life is good. The second thing is hope. Easter morning is a time to remember that there is hope. The sun does come up. The seasons do change. Life goes on. There is hope. And we are a people of hope. If nothing else, we are a people of hope. We don't give up on those who are struggling. We don't ignore those who are on the margins. We don't forget about those who are so easy to overlook. We are a people of hope. The third thing is justice. You know, Good Friday is a pretty devastating, even the ceremony that we did, the somber ceremony that we did Friday night, it really confronts us with the injustice of the world. That the author of life lost his life. That the Prince of Peace suffered violence. There's an element of justice that lingers on Easter morning because we realize that Jesus was the victim of the police state. But God stood beside the victim and vindicated with resurrection and new life. So we are to also be a people of justice. And then the last thing is community. That the life of Christ in us not only connects us to each other, which is fantastic, by the way, and if that's all there was, that would be wonderful. But the life of Christ not just connects us to each other, it connects us to the divine. The entire point of our entire religious practice and tradition and our exercise of worship is that we're good with God. Forgiveness and hope and grace and empowerment and spirit live in us as a community, connect us as individuals, and propel us out into the world. So I just want to give you a moment to meditate, and maybe you want to add to my list of 4. But I'd just like to give you a minute to sit with these thoughts, that on Easter morning, what we are really celebrating is life and hope and justice and community. Let's think for a minute.